Well, what do we have today? Let's go ahead and just go into the pocket. Loving the new pocket clip, the deep carry clip for the 80-20.5 is working really well for me. I wasn't so sure at first about the height of it because it kind of is a little higher than the bottom of the knife, but I have not noticed that at all. Super pleased with it, and I ended up putting up just an install video on it today. Not the most exciting video, and my 3-year-old is definitely participating in that one, so my apologies for that. But let's see what we got here. This is I believe a private party sale. Nicely packaged. This is kind of my new thing, is seeing how people are packaging my private party purchases. That came out. Hopefully I didn't get any exposure on that one. This is cool. I feel like I'm reaching a point in the Demco collection where I can be very selective and not spend a ton of time on it now. Had a really big week last week, figured out a few new avenues to source them, and today I finished up a few more last purchases to sort of round off that collection. And we are generally to a point where we don't need many more. So anyone that knows that sticker probably knows what's going to come next. So I started going after some Hinderers, and now based on my experience from the Demcos, this is kind of backwards because most people that are in the Demcos, either maybe bought some of the cold steel or custom Demcos from the past, or perhaps potentially spent time on Hinderers, and that's a pretty natural progression. But wow, that blue really pops. So model wise, this is an XM-18 3.5 spear point tri-way stonewash blue G10, a pretty common variant. I think these are in stock right now at Blade HQ is one of the places I saw it. I think Knife, no, I can't remember where the other one was, but these are out there. This is not the hardest to find. Now, if you want the specific colors and exact design and everything, that might be a little harder. This one looks like it's got a little thing going on right now. It's been in the mailbox and it's like 40 degrees out right now, so it's actually just got some condensation on it. Luckily 20 CV, we're not too worried about that. So this is again, knife guy, but not a Hinderer guy. So this will be sort of a first experience, coming out of things like Demcos and seeing what I think of the Hinderer. So we're going to start with the flip tab. I've heard people saying that this is a little sharp, but if it's a good one, you can push button it. But let's just start with the safe way and see what we get. So real crisp. I felt a little stick, just a tad bit of stick, like right when I was deploying it. Super smooth putting it away there. Now let's just try we did the light switch. Let's try a push button and see what we get. Yep, that one's pretty hard on the detent, so I'm gonna have to really give it a push there. So that was harder than I expected it to be, but it is, I think this one's like new in box or brand new in box. Like new in box, I think was the condition described for this one. I'll check. I bought a couple of them. So one of the things I noticed right away versus the Demcos is the way they knock down the top of the blade here is really nice. So let's see what else we got. Let's see if I can avoid the hospital while doing a thumb flick. I'm going to come around here so I have better, especially with a frame lock knife, better positioning. Want to try and get this right, but yep, fail on the first try, fail on the second try, fail on the third try. So we're not getting a thumb stud flick there. It could be why this person was selling it. The knife is cold right now, so that could be affecting it. I mean, the interesting thing is really soft on the close. It is just a very strong detent though. I've heard they work in a bit, but I am seeing what people are talking about now there. And like already from fatigue, I can not push button it anymore. So my only deployment method now is thumb flicks. So let's just see if somehow that changes a little bit when I try a finger flick here. Yeah, there's no way. So this one's either very new and or, you know, just some of them are going to be done a little differently than others. So let's see how the centering is there. Not sure what the best way is to check on a Hinderer, but it looks very centered. I'm going to do that for my point of view better than yours probably for a second. Looks well centered. I mean, there's not a lot of tolerance there, right? One of the things that's kind of standing out to me is given the blade thickness, there's not a ton of space between this, the frame and the scales, which is pretty impressive, because that means things have to be really straight and centered, or this knife is not going to do what it does. So let's just see what else we can do. Just a lefty kind of two-handed hold there. I mean, that is really nice, I gotta say. This is a tri-way, so you can see the little tri-way emblem there. Despite the hard detent, when you put it away, it is glassy, glassy, glassy. Like more than I'd say even my Chris Reeves. Now this is starting to loosen up, it feels like. Could be that it's warming up as well. It could also be, you know, that I may have been grabbing the frame lock there. I may have just been like squeezing so hard in the frame lock, I was making that harder for myself. So let me make a very conscious effort to not be on the frame lock. I see that this sits off of the frame. I assume that that right there is in the frame, not on the lock. So let me just very consciously be off the frame, or on the frame and off the lock. Yeah, you know what? I think I may have just been pushing super hard on the lock. You know, I'm trying to do a couple things here. This is the first time having a Hinderer in hand, and is that true? I may have handled one or two over the years, but never owned one. So first time owning one. Okay, we're getting a very different experience now. And let me see if I'm going to try and do this the safe way, but making sure I'm off of that. And I'm still having issues trying to get that deployed with the thumb. And maybe, yeah, I'm still having issues deploying that with the thumb. So that's not happening. But overall, first impression is that it's a very impressive knife. Let me clean it up here for the video. Give me a sec. Boom, boom, boom. Very impressive, the fit and finish. Don't love the, I'm not a big fan of flipper and frame lock. I feel like your natural thing that you're gonna do on a flipper is you're gonna pinch right here, almost like not like a chopstick, but almost like a chopstick in a way. And it's gonna, that's like the very natural thing to do, right? Because you're gonna go put a bunch of pressure here. So you need to hold whatever you're holding really tightly so it doesn't push it out of your hand. And I prefer personally a liner lock, or a, you know, like an axis lock, or, you know, maybe even a, I guess it can't be a shark lock because that's in the same place, but I'm not a big fan of flipper plus frame lock. I know it's a popular model with a lot of great history there, and I just suck at deploying, but just my personal preference. So I haven't really gotten Hinderers for a long time. I did just get a flipper-less, a non-flipper, I think it's called, Eclipse. So that's on its way. We'll see how that is. One of the other things I noticed right away is this like very bold jimping is impressive. You know, you can compare that even just really quickly to an 80-22.5, what did I just call it? 80-20.5. Very different approach there. These are somewhat similar, a little taller on the Hinderer, on the thumb studs, but the yeah, the approach on the jimping is very different. Just much bigger, different design. So let's see, maybe now that I'm not grabbing the lock, if I can get back to the push button. Yeah, no problem. So sorry about that, but that's an honest review for you, and that's part of it, right? Like, is how intuitive is the knife? And that's one of the reasons that I'm just not a big fan of that combination. Is it's not intuitive to me to not hold the knife like this when I'm going to deploy like this, and then I'm fighting myself. So, you know, you have to make a very conscious effort to, you know, maybe you hold it like that or something. I don't know what the best practice is, but it is what it is. So let's just get a couple more flips there, because that is now getting real fun to do, honestly, now that I've kind of got it down. And let me see if I can show here. Yeah, let me do this for you. So what I'm noticing is that just is drop shut. So that's sweet. Maybe I'll try and pull up in the background the particular condition of this example and whether it was carried or something along those lines. If I recall correctly, I think it was brand like new in box, but not brand new in box. And looking at it, it's kind of hard to tell, but it feels sort of broken in now that I mean, the knife's also warmed up a lot, so I don't know if it has anything to do with it or if I'm just not lock sticking myself by pushing on there, but it feels very smooth now on the deployment. Yeah, and it's just a beautiful knife. So I'm kind of freaking out. Let me stand up all the way, and I'm just really failing to get the other forms of deployment to work. So maybe I'm just not good at it, but I'm not having a lot of success with the thumb stud really in any way. Even if I just try and roll it out of there, I can't do it. And just to make sure, you know, I'm not completely incapable of just rolling a knife out. That was like, I'm trying to think of what level of effort this is on the Demco. Maybe 15-20% thumb power at the most. Think again. Yeah, like maybe 20% at the most, 15-20%. Yeah, it doesn't include the fact that you don't need to do it at all if you don't want to. Whereas I literally can't, maybe I could get it with my other hand. Yeah, it's weird. I kind of could tell for some reason it'd be easier to do with the lefty. But I literally can't get it out. Now, if you know, if you're following the channel, I did bash my finger pretty badly with an axe last week, so there's that. So it's not 100% strength right now, and this is not hard to get out with the flipper, so it's kind of surprising, honestly, because the flipper is now quite reasonable on how hard you have to either light switch or, like, I'm having no problems push buttoning it now. So yeah, it's interesting that I can't even, I mean, that's, you know, 80% effort. I don't want to push too hard because, you know, the temptation there, if you push hard enough, is that it's your thumb's going this direction, and as the blade comes out and your thumb's going in that direction, when you're pushing that hard, you have a strong chance of injury. Now I see I'm kind of, you know, it has the, so here's the other thing I haven't tried yet, and this feels phenomenal as a choked up point. That's one of the best I've felt. So I see why, you know, some of the other reviewers, I know, like Neves Knives and Metal Complex, are big fans, and these are like big knife guys. And I could see why. Like the feel of this knife is like it's meant to be gripped. It's interesting how the shape of it, the knife is, you know, quite curved. I know one of the models, in fact, one of the ones I got is called, I think, the Recurve. But that's interesting how they just have such a different design. It's better comparable to, let me pull out an 8020S really quickly. Oh, I have it here. A better comparable to, you know, a Rat 2 size-wise, or a Shaman size-wise, than to the Demco or an 8020S. You know, if you had a drop point 8020S, that'd be a really good comparable. But it's a very different shape. It's interesting how point to point, you know, technically they're probably the same if you were to draw a line. So it'd be kind of interesting to like see the line of that by comparison. But I mean, think about how different that functions. And where I notice it is when you grab the knife in your hand, the knife feels like it's pointing down on this, whereas on this one, you choke up on it and you feel like the knife is pointing straight out, which I find this, these knives to be a very predictable and utilitarian feel to them. That just is very intuitive, and you know where the knife's going to go. I open packages more accurately with this knife than any other. It's why it's my EDC, because that's what I do with my knives mostly, is like open packages. So let me get the Spyderco out of here. And we'll get this guy out of here too. And I just kind of want to put these two up against each other, because price-wise, both $425 MSRP. This is a G10 S45VN Demco. I just did the unboxing of this. I'm getting a tad bit of, I guess you might call that lock stick when I have a hard opening on this. The lock is sticking a little bit. I've only felt that on one other, on the carbon fiber. It's actually on the unboxing video. You'll see me like do this for a second because I'm like, that kind of stuck. So I've only felt that on two Demcos. They're both 8020S. Not sure. Both machine ground 8020S. But I imagine either a little bit of like lubricant in there or something might address that. That's random. So let's get back and kind of look at this, because this to me is very interesting side by side. Very similar in the handle length, very similar in the blade length, probably pretty similar in the weight, if I were to guess. Do a quick weight comparison here. The fit and finish feels different in these knives. Like, on one hand, the Demcos feel amazing to me. Like the 8020 is probably one of the best opening knives in terms of like smoothness I've ever felt. This 8020S is not quite as smooth as the 8020, but it's very good. The fit and finish of this feels different. It's kind of in between the Demco and the Chris Reeves, which is interesting. Whether it's an Incosi or Savenza, they're all kind of the same fit and finish in my opinion. So 5.51 ounces. I believe this one was about the same. 5.43 ounces. So a tad heavier than a G10 S45VN 8020S. Again, I'm sure this is a reverse review for most, because most people get their Hinderer before they got their Demco, but well, welcome to my world. Like the stonewash finish. I know there's some like working finishes and satin. I think it's satin. There's a few others. I do see like a slight, make sure the condition of this. Yeah, it seems to be new. I do see like a slight line in there though. I just noticed it in the camera. Let's see if I can get it back on there again. So I'll have to go check the condition on this one. It might be like a like new in box or something like that. But I am seeing some very light lines on there. I'll have to see what the condition was, but regardless, good as new as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it feels like a great knife. Would I carry this? Pocket Priorities, right? That's the name of the show. Throw it in there for a sec, because this is obviously a highly carried knife out there. No deep carry clip, kind of like the Demco, same thing. I'm noticing a lot of the high-end knives don't really have a deep carry clip. It's not what a lot of them are. I guess they're intended for it, but they're not optimized for it in ways, if that makes sense. I love the blue color. I was actually very hesitant when I saw this like blue. I don't know if that's anodized titanium or if that's like something deeper, but in the matching pocket clip, yeah, with this blue, I saw the pictures and I didn't love it, honestly. I was like, whatever, let's get our hands on a Hinderer. But in person, I actually do love it. I love it quite a bit. It really pops, complements. I also have some coming with the regular titanium finish that I think would be really cool to get the titanium scale, you know, to have that full titanium look and feel. But this feels great in hand. Like, this knife is highly optimized for the hand, clearly. And that is standing out to me the most. This angle of the knife is something I'd have to get used to. That's the thing that's the most awkward to me so far. And I'm sure some people are like, dude, that's this style, and that you don't know anything about X, Y, and Z or whatever. So yeah, you're right, I don't. But I also have had and handled over, you know, I've owned over 100 knives, probably approaching 200 now, if not more. Anything ranging from $20 to 2,000 plus, and that's my impression of this, you know, is that it feels like a bent knife, which is cool in a way, but it's also like something I'm not used to. Jimping's pretty good, but it kind of feels like it ends soon. Like, I'd probably like that to go up a little further for me personally. But yeah, I can see the ergos are kind of designed from a jimping perspective like this, because the jimping goes back into the handle. So this is where you can see, like, I feel like in a lot of ways this knife is designed to have your hand in the handle, but I don't know, I got a 4-inch wide hand, and although I have skinny fingers, I feel a little, like, it's clearly on the knife with room, but it feels a little small to me there, whereas this feels like tiny blade, but more like my hand's solid on the knife in the back. For some reason, even though there's this nice jimping when I'm here, yeah, it's just not my favorite like ergo. So I'd have to either get used to that, or that's just something that I don't like as much as like a Demco. Yeah, this just feels more natural to me. That feels like a more intuitive knife. I can also pull out just a good old bug out. Nothing exciting here, but when I'm in it, I feel like I don't choke up on this, because there's not really a spot to do that. You could, but you're highly likely to get cut there, so I'd say you couldn't. Just super flat, but like something about the way it fits in here. I don't know if it's the size of the end of the knife being smaller there. This feels a little more natural to me. Gosh, at the same time, there's something very ergonomic about it, but yeah, I'll have to spend some time with that and see what I think. I got a couple more coming, like I mentioned, so can definitely dig in and see what I think. On the very other end of the spectrum, but also blue, would be like the Wii Banter, which Ben Banter is like one of the most like ergo-centric, like has to be this way kind of guys. And one of the things you'll notice here is he goes way wide at the end versus the Hinderer goes skinny at the end. So that's like the opposite end of the spectrum from that perspective. Like, this is the straightest, like this knife, you could draw a line from there to there. It's almost a spear point. I think it's a drop point. Is it a spear point? It's probably a spear point. I always forget if this is a spear point or a drop point. You like really can't look at it and tell. I think it's a spear point. Yeah, and there's just something intuitive about this knife too. I mean, it's a chunk of G10, so it's not the elegance of this. God, this knife is really sweet though. You can just feel, you know, it reminds me so much of the Chris Reeves, which I don't want to try and pull out of the packaging right now and get on this video, but I wish I kind of had it out. I didn't realize this was going to be a Hinderer when I opened the box. I'd have that Chris Reeves kind of ready to compare it side by side with. I guess the other one that is a cool comparison would be the Shaman. This one I got, I don't know if I did an unboxing video on this or not, but it came with, first of all, out of center, and like second, strong detent. And I've been playing around with this, and like one of these screws here like was literally loose. Like I put my Torx into it and it like was not tight at all. And then the other one was super tight, and the knife was like not doing what it was supposed to do. But I actually think the Shaman's like in hand one of the best Spydercos. You know, for my size hand, you can actually see I have a ton of extra room there. I could actually, this could be a shorter one for me. I mean, if you're back here, but for me, the natural thing with the Spyderco is to go right up into that choke up point because it's designed for it. And that's also a very intuitive shape. The shape isn't, it's intuitive for cutting for me because I always find them kind of hitting the belly there, but just the overall ergos of this feel like it's more intuitive. So let's throw that right next to it. Size-wise, they're like super similar, very similar there. Like the handle length and the blade length, they're almost exactly the same, if not exactly the same. Looks like this handle's a tad bit longer. Boy, they're really close. So these three knives really tightly compete, I feel like, size-wise and everything else. All three awesome knives, honestly. Oops, got to show you the mess on the desk there. Hope I didn't throw my address in there. You can all send me hate mail for sucking at these videos, but yeah, excited to have this. Something I've been wanting to have for a while. And overall impressed. There's, for the same reasons that I didn't get it for a long time, there's some shortcomings, but the strengths I feel like are significant. And if I can remember to keep my finger off of the, you know, the lock while I open it, it's pretty awesome. I'm still tripping out that I cannot get it open from the thumb stud like at all, which might have been why this person was selling it, honestly, because I've seen videos where like people have multiple Hinderers and like some of them do some things, some of them do others, and I could totally see someone being frustrated with this thumb stud and hawking it on blade forums. But we'll get some work on it, see how it feels overall, because the closing is phenomenal. And you may have noticed that there, like if I can do a very minimal effort flip, even in this position where it has to overcome gravity, right? When the blade comes out in this position, it has to overcome this first 90 degrees of travel before it then flips all the way down. And I'd say that's one of the harder positions to open a knife, would be blade up like that. And it's working pretty well. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I get why so many people like it. I get why it's the price it is. I get the fit and finish. I'm surprised after as long as they've been doing this that they still have that. I'm sure they've gotten so much feedback, but that's still so sharp in that shape. But, you know, Demko does some weird stuff too that people don't like because he likes it. He generally addresses his populace. Like you noticed in his custom grounds, you'll see a lot of them without thumb studs and just use the slot. So he does, you know, think about the broader market when he makes a lot of his knives. And obviously Hinderer clearly does as well, but there are a couple points here and there that you can see are just, hey, this is how we do it. You either like it or you don't. And obviously a ton of people love these knives for a reason. And I can definitely see why. Really nice. I just need to learn how to use it better. Definitely did not expect to not be able to get past the detent. I'm putting some pretty serious freaking pressure on that to try and get past it. And that is just really stuck in there. It could also be a factor of being a 3.5-inch knife, but that feels like a very strong detent to me. I'll have to compare it to some of the others that I get and see what I think. Just the break point there, you can see it in the video when I do this, how it pulls up. It's still locked, still locked. So let's see how far that looks like it travels before it releases. It's a pretty long way to have to go for your thumb to have to like push that out from here at the very furthest leverage point. You know how torque works. It's all about, you know, this is my weakest point and this is my strongest point against the blade. So to have to pull it out from here on a 3.5 inch blade with that strong of a detent, you can hear the purchase on that when it pops in. It's part of what's brilliant about the knife. But it's also, you know, has its, you pay a price for just about everything. You know, there are a lot of trade-offs in knives, which is why I have a lot of them and why I love them. So really cool knife. Was not prepared for this comparison. I like to out of box to start throwing knives next to them and compare them. So I was not expecting this to be what came out of here. I was expecting a Demco on this one. But I am excited to have it and excited to use it and compare it in other videos to other knives and just try and put some time on it. Got a great recommendation today from one of the viewers there. Let me throw a name out here. That was from Thunderlight. Thanks for just carrying knives that I didn't use as much, and I just happened to be thinking similarly to you. So this will be something that I'll try and carry probably. If not this model, one of the other ones. I picked up 3 Hinderers of various different form factors to tinker with and open, review, and so on. So yeah, maybe this thing will just get carried, or one of the other ones will get carried, and see how it does compared to some of my favorites that I've carried, like the Bug Outs, which is like my shorts carry, my summer carry is kind of my new theory here. Is if I'm wearing a pair of shorts to go do something athletic, a Bug Out Mini or a Bug Out is very hard to beat. Right now in the winter, you know, just coincidental timing, I've gotten really into the Demcos. And that makes that 80-20.5 just makes a phenomenal winter carry. And maybe this winter, this guy can kind of compete with them and see what you think. So, you know, it's also a longer blade than I would normally carry. I'm normally like around a 3-inch carry kind of person, and this is a 3.5, so it sort of adds an element. So bit of a longer video than I expected, but just off the cuff here, and hope you enjoyed it. And if so, like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.